Beijing is grappling with a mounting debt crisis as investors ramp up calls for fiscal stimulus to boost the economy.
Yes, do not be surprised by China's current economic collapse. The debt supercycle that originated in the United States and Europe following the 2008 financial crisis is now knocking on China's door, and some experts have even declared that the situation is indeed critical. Now, for some background. Over the past few months, spanning July, August and September, if you've been watching the news as much as we have, you'd know that China has experienced a series of alarming events. To start, consumer spending and lending, which is usually robust in a capital-driven country like China, has declined sharply. Also, key figures in the government like the foreign minister and the defense minister have gone missing or been dismissed. There have also been disturbing reports on youth unemployment that prompted the stoppage of data collection. Moreover, information on bond transactions and patents has become scarce, hindering the country's move towards a more sustainable economic structure. However, for more background to the problems, it's also important to note that until recently, China was on an impressive growth trajectory. This was largely due to a pivotal moment in 1979, when China established diplomatic relations with the United States and consequently the rest of the world. This, of course, opened the floodgates to foreign investment and international trade, and over the past 3 decades, China has been at the forefront of production, attracting investments and experiencing rapid productivity growth. During this period, China's economy grew exponentially, becoming 11 times larger than it was in 2001 alone. China even became the world's largest exporting nation in 2009. However, beneath the surface there were issues. Yes, China's rapid growth did make it increasingly powerful on the global stage, giving it significant leverage over business and becoming a challenging partner in international trade, but some members of the World Trade Organization had accused China of offering illegal state subsidies to its businesses for exporting products, discriminating against companies that didn't source from Chinese manufacturers, and exerting control over supply chains by taxing raw materials. There were also allegations that China manipulated its currency by devaluing it to boost its exports, contributing to unsustainable economic growth. Besides these allegations, there were other specific challenges China had to deal with, including a massive real estate decline and deflation. See, at one time, citizens in China heavily invested in property, leading to double-digit price increases year after year. And because of that, China's real estate market grew to represent 70% of the country's wealth, a figure more than twice that of the United States. Developers pre-sold units to buyers who usually paid exorbitant sums, causing housing prices to soar. However, as China's economy continued to slow down, we saw developers struggling to secure capital to complete projects, and protests erupting as a result. This issue also contributed to China's current deflation problem, where prices are declining rather than rising as a result of reduced consumer spending, a slump in housing prices, and companies reducing their workforce. Now, these terrible developments in China, leading to its current widespread societal, economic and political breakdown, might seem sudden at first, but you better believe they've been a long time coming. Actually, if in the past 5 or 6 years someone in China had access to the country's comprehensive economic and political data, they surely would have discovered that China's decline had already commenced at the time. So we're only shocked at the moment, not exactly because we weren't expecting the effects of these developments on China's economy, but because of how the world failed to recognize them when they came about. Looking back, for instance, there have been many odd occurrences in China that were evident for years, but they were always overshadowed by global events like the Ukraine war, Iranian conflicts, and the political shifts in the US and Europe. Additionally, the focus on COVID-19 for several years blocked our ability to discover these underlying issues easily. For instance, we now see that within China, a significant shift actually occurred under President Xi Jinping, who conducted purges, eliminating potential rivals and stifling the rise of new leaders. We also now see that, at the time, data collection methods were altered, which has now created an information vacuum in the country. Of all these, however, the most significant factor contributing to China's economic decline is its demographic situation. Recent data suggests there has been a drastic but consistent drop in China's birth rate since 2017, the fastest decline in recorded history. Also, a potential overcount of the population reveals China has been dealing with a shortage of working-age individuals for the longest time. Meaning also that in recent years, China's likely reached its peak workforce, and now there aren't enough millennials to sustain the country's production or even consumption levels. As a matter of fact, the demographic crisis in China has been deemed irreversible. And why? Well, it's plainly because there aren't even enough individuals under the age of 40 to rectify it in the first place. And even if China had supportive macroeconomic structures to encourage family growth, the statistics would still say the same for a very long time, which is why, currently, we're witnessing a rapid deterioration in China's industrial competitiveness. This demographic challenge, combined with the internal political purges and information gaps, has led to the current crisis we're talking about in this video. The signs were always there, but because the world was always distracted by other imminent global issues, we're only just now realizing the true extent of China's problems. Now, as expected, there are other challenges China has been facing that have added to the collapse of its economy. For instance, there's the Ukraine conflict and impending sanctions between China and other world power countries, along with increasing vulnerability to energy and food shortages. But this vulnerability we've mentioned mainly arises from Europe diverting its resources away from Russia. This is a movement that has forced China to rely on weaker infrastructure connections that extend through regions like Africa, India, and Vietnam, creating highly exposed supply lines for China's importation and exportation practices. Consequently, we can expect more disruptions due to these supply challenges because they stand to limit China's access to global trade and merchandise exports. Adding to these issues too is the fact that the United States Biden administration is currently enacting protectionist policies to a degree not seen in the United States for a century, even surpassing the policies of former President Trump. The current tariffs and quotas on imported goods, along with subsidies to restrain the free movement of imported goods in the country, are what add to the multifaceted pressures from various directions that are definitely straining China's stability. And the question of whether President Xi can effectively address these pressures remains unanswered, because his leadership has already purged the system to such an extent we can't even say whether he'll be able to recognize these issues properly, let alone come up with the best policies to handle them. So, as things stand, it's evident that demographically China's status as a dominant economic power will be lost in this decade. But who knows? China's current levels of limited access to trade and its other political failures may speed the process up, especially if influential global players like Washington, London, and Tokyo refrain from intervening in helping China land on its feet again. As such, the most significant concern at this juncture is time. Does China and the rest of the world have sufficient time to adapt? The reason behind this question is the fact that even though, yes, industrial growth and employment prospect levels in the United States and the rest of Europe appear favourable, the real challenge lies in mitigating the disruption caused by China's collapse. There's already a current high demand for industrial products like transmission towers and transformers, for instance, which are predominantly manufactured in China, and some of these products already have wait lists exceeding 36 months. So with China's economic and political collapse, countries might find themselves in a predicament where it's unclear whether these products will ever arrive until they fail to do so. With that in mind, we believe this situation also shows us once again the urgent need for countries to accelerate the growth of their domestic industrial capacity so that they can stop depending on Chinese imports. Of course, the shift won't be as straightforward, but it's necessary to start without delay because before we know it, we'll soon have to live in a world where China isn't the industrial hub of mankind anymore. And when that time comes, any country without its own capacity to produce will be left at the bottom of the pile. Alright then, that's all for today's video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Also, share this video, press that post notification bell so you don't miss out on our future videos. We analyse the latest trending economic news, so watch out, and until next time, take care.